All right, ladies and gentlemen, friendly reminder, tomorrow you do have a test, 25 questions. 25 questions to 26 minutes. Your focus and your pieces are due tomorrow. We have a ton of content. There will be 2 lectures. Today, in first period, I recorded Europe's lecture, the rest of Europe, America and Europe. Today, we're going to do outside of Europe in second period. So tonight, for homework, you should definitely watch my first lecture. Does that make sense? So you can finish those notes just to make sure everyone's got all the content covered. Is that okay with you? So today, we are going to do the second half. We're going to focus really on India. We're going to talk about Gandhi. Everyone loves a little Gandhi action, especially with Trump being in India. How perfect timing, yes? No? Fine. All right. Here we go. On your whiteboard, please tell me, what is the name of the document that ends World War I? Come on, people. Good. Lauren. Treaty of Versailles. On your whiteboard, what is the name of the dude behind the theory of relativity? Good. Lopez. Einstein. On your whiteboard, what is the name of the dude behind the subconscious mind, interpretation of dreams, free association, and repression of sexual desires? Tessa. Freud. On your whiteboard, please tell me who's the dude behind Cubism. Good. Who is it, Mary Ellen? Picasso. On your whiteboard, please tell me, what is it called when Germany, what is the name of the clause that forced Germany to pay reparations, which will be the foundation? What's the name of the clause that will force Germany to pay reparations that will become the catalyst of the Great Depression? What do you got, Victoria? War guilt clause. On your whiteboard, please tell me what type of countries are going to be the most affected by the Great Depression? What type of countries? Good. Good. Mary Ellen, educate your peers. Single export countries are the most affected. Those single export countries are what, Lauren? Typically your colonies. On your whiteboard, please tell me, what is the agricultural crisis that will begin in the 1930s? Good. What is it, Andrew?
The Dust Bowl.
The Dust Bowl. On your whiteboard, what day does the Great Depression officially begin in the United States? Good. Gabby. October 24th, 1929. What is the nickname we have for October 24th, 1929? Good. Lauren.
Black Thursday.
Black Thursday. Definitely not Black Friday. Black Thursday. On your whiteboard, what is it called when customers go to the bank and ask for their money? The first couple customers can get it because banks don't carry that much money, but eventually it'll cause a panic. What do we call that, Carly? A run on the bank. Eventually 44% of banks will close in the United States because of these runs. On your whiteboard, please tell me, what is the greatest failed attempt for the U.S. economy to try to recover from the Great Depression? They're going to burn food. Good. What is it, Daniel? On your whiteboard, what is the name of the dude who is actually going to help stabilize? He doesn't save the economy, he stabilizes the economy. But if he didn't stabilize it, we would have continued to go into free fall. Who stabilizes the U.S. economy? Maddie? Keynes. John Maynard Keynes. John Maynard Keynes stabilizes the economy by playing with what? No. You wouldn't dare touch that during it. What is he playing with, Sean?
Interest rates.
Interest rates. That's his big thing. Now, interest rates do have an effect on the deficit. However, they're not deficit. Okay. All right, interest rates is John Maynard Keynes' things. Now, what will eventually absolutely pull the United States out of the Great Depression? What will eventually pull the United States out of the Great Depression? Jose?
World War II.
World War II spending. That's what gets us officially out of. What is the name of the president who implemented the New Deal and eventually will lead us into World War II? Good. Well, you got to be more specific. We have 2 of them. Good. Who is it, Gabby? FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Okay. On your whiteboard, please. That's pretty much where we left off. Yes? Yes? Okay. All right. I do need to start you into the Bolshevik Revolution, and then I'm going to walk away, and then we're going to move to Asia. Okay. All right. So the Bolshevik Revolution is where we left off. So skip a space, center it. Bolshevik Revolution. Okay, Bolshevik Revolution is when Lenin and his Bolsheviks take over Russia. Bolshevik Revolution is when Lenin and his Bolsheviks take over Russia. Okay, so they will eventually win the Civil War. Okay, you need to know they will eventually win the Russian Civil War. Okay, which cements their power. Alright, so this is new information. All of that you should have known, yes? Okay, this is new information. So, you need to know that Lenin will implement war communism. Lenin will implement war communism. Okay, which means he will do rapid collectivization. What does collectivization mean? I've taught you this term before. Marley. Yeah, he's taking private farms and making it government property. He's taking private land and making it government property. You need to write that down because I doubt you really do know that. So, war communism is all about rapid collectivization, which means the government takes over all private land for themselves. So, I own a condo. If Trump decides tomorrow to do rapid collectivization, who owns my condo tomorrow? Trump does. The government does. Yes? Okay, that's collectivization. If I owned a massive farm in Plant City, guess what? Trump would definitely be taking that if it was doing rapid collectivization. We understand what collectivization is. When the government takes over all private property. You need to know that it is massively unpopular. Massively unpopular and will fail. So, how did Lenin's first implementation go? Horrible. Now, keep in mind, this is 100% communist base because Lenin is a true believer. Can we agree? We talked about this. He's a true believer. However, war communism fails, and then he implements the new economic policy. So underneath it, war communism fails, so he implements the new economic policy. In parentheses, you need to write NEP. Sometimes it's just referred to as NEP. This is also implemented by Lenin. Okay, when you watch my video today for Europe, this is where it picks up. Is everyone clear? So that way you have all the information. Perfect. I would skip maybe a couple pages. Like a page and a half to 2 pages. We're going to skip to national. Okay, we're going to go straight to India. So when you watch my video from earlier today, there's 2 videos that will be posted. The first one is going to be finishing Russia and going to fascism in Europe. Now we're going to India. Sounds good? All right, here we go. India is your heading, please. Okay, so you need to know that India is going to get the Indian National Congress in 1885 to promote self-rule. Who is in charge of India at this time? British. Yeah, the British are still in control. Are the British in a rush to give them up? No. Why, Tessa? What do they call India? The jewel in the crown. Yeah. Why do they call India the jewel in the crown? Okay, so there's 2 major things that colonies are required, that all all colonies need to have. Why do countries want colonies? There's two major things. What are the two major aspects? Callie? Okay, so they need natural resources and they need the... No. Because all the things are going back to England to be named. What is it? The markets. Markets and natural resources are the two big things they need. Guess what India has crazy amounts of both? They've got tons of people and tons of natural resources. That's why it's called the Crown of India. It's the jewel in the crown. So, you need to know, both Hindus and Muslims were supportive of the Indian National Congress. Okay? Because in India, they have two major religions. They have three religions going on there, really, but two major ones, between the Hindus and the Muslims. Okay? Now, after post-World War I, you need to know this, and I would start it with post-World War I, India wanted its independence with much more ferocity. They really wanted it. They wanted to be done with the British. Okay? So, the British, to counteract all of this negativity towards the British, they create the Muslim League. They create the Muslim League, which will suppress and cause tension with the Hindus. Sorry, it's a Muslim League. It'll cause conflict with the Hindus. Why are they getting involved between Muslims and Hindus? Why would they go from, okay, so everyone is in agreement that like, hey, we need to get rid of the British. But then all of a sudden the British create the Muslim League. Why would they do that, Carly? Yes, they're trying to create a cultural war between the Muslims and the Hindus. Why? It makes logical sense. It's brilliant. Why? Mary Ellen? There you go. But if they're fighting amongst themselves, what can't they fight? The British. So it's a brilliant move. Okay? So they create the Muslim League in order to stop this unification against the British. It's a brilliant move. And it works for quite some time. Okay. Now, you're going to have a guy named Mohandas Gandhi. You need to write out his full name. You can't just write Gandhi because we have a couple Gandhis coming your way. Mohandas Gandhi is the Gandhi. When you think Gandhi, this is your dude. Okay, you need to know he's Hindu because in India it's really important you know their religions. He's a Hindu. He studied law at Oxford. So ladies and gentlemen, was he supportive of the British or anti-British his whole life? He supported the British for his early part of his life. First half of his life. He went to Oxford and Cambridge and got his law degrees, and he wore his little suit and his little wig and presided over Indians in India representing British law. And then after seeing a couple of really atrocious attacks against the Indians by the British, he ends up giving up all of it and leading the resistance movement, which is kind of funny because, like, I think I have a picture. Oh, so you have Gandhi. You've seen Gandhi like this, yes? There's tons of pictures of Gandhi in his full, like, British uniform with his, like, wig hat, like, wigged hair and all that stuff, so which is kind of interesting. All right, so you need to know that he is going to practice law in South Africa first and then go to India. Well, in South Africa, what government system do they have there? I haven't taught it to you yet, but what government system do they have in South Africa? Callie? Apartheid. What is apartheid, ladies and gentlemen? Carly? It's segregation of the races by the British. It's also one of the most effective racial systems ever devised. Okay? They learned a lot from the failure of the Americans. Okay, remember how we had American Revolution, all that stuff, and they implemented a lot of changes. It's one of the most successful racial systems. Now, Is it absolutely disgusting and appalling? Absolutely. Is it an incredibly efficient system of segregating people based on race and keeping them fighting against each other and not against the British? Absolutely. Okay. So, he is going to go back to India. Okay? And he is going to make the Indian National Congress into a mass movement. So he is going to unify the people against the British. Sounds way more exciting than over here. Okay, so when he gets back to India, he's going to unify the people of India against the British. Now, there's a couple terms on your test that you need to know. Ahisma means non-violence. He is all about non-violent protest. Why would Gandhi tell the people of India not to fight against the British? It makes perfect logical sense. Why, Jose?
Because they could get killed.
Well, anyone can get killed. And believe me, they're still going to die. Andrew?
There's no way they're going to win.
There's no way they're going to win if they pick a military conflict with the British. Why, Andrew?
Because Britain's most powerful country.
It's one of the most powerful countries in the world. And at this point, it is the most powerful country because the United States doesn't rise to power until World War II officially to take the power away from Britain. So they are the most powerful country in the world. So there's no way India could have fought their way through. They couldn't have. However, ladies and gentlemen, if I take a lead pole and start beating my friend Jack here with it, and Jack never hits me back, is that going to be jarring? Hello? Watching me beat Jack would also be jarring. But if Jack never fights back, never hits me back, and literally takes the abuse, is it more upsetting or less upsetting? It's more upsetting. So if someone took a video, well, we're in 2020, it'd be a video, or someone took a photo of me beating Jack, and Jack standing there solemnly taking the hits, and eventually getting beaten to death with me raging and smacking the crap out of him, who looks demonic and enraged and out of control? Him or me? Me. So who is going to be blamed? Well, I also did kill Jack, so I should be blamed. But I look like I'm out of control and completely deranged. And the world's public opinion is going to be anti-Britain. Ladies and gentlemen, nonviolence is, first thing you need to know, the reason why they picked it is A, because they knew they couldn't beat Britain in an all-out war. You need to know that. They couldn't beat Britain in an all-out war. They know that. I'm sorry, I wouldn't kill you, Jack. I really wouldn't, I promise. But thank you for being my example. Okay? The second reason is it's bad for publicity and it will cause worldwide outrage. If you see photos of Indians sitting there taking these horrific beatings, getting shot just sitting there, is that more jarring or is it easier to see? It's more jarring because they're not fighting back, correct? So it causes more of a public outcry. Okay? Then you have, I'm not even going to try. I see you looking at me, Vishnavi. How do you say it? Can you say it one more time? Yeah, that's not coming out of my mouth. You know that. I'm so sorry. It means passive resistance. Okay? So they are not going to try to directly challenge the authority of the British in major ways, but they're going to disrupt the British. Okay? This is very much so like how the colonists were fighting in the United States. We're going to make their lives harder, not easier. So, where they would do sit-ins in the center of major traffic squares. They would just sit down and stop the flow of traffic. That is passive resistance. They're not going to go up and start heckling or challenging direct authority. They're just going to make the things harder. They're going to start doing sit-ins and protests and all that stuff that just slow down the production of goods and movement. Okay? So, he's also going, of course, we know they have civil disobedience, where they willfully break the law. And of course, we're going to have a boycott of British institutions. So anything that the British directly own, if you're an Indian, you weren't going to buy it. Okay, so you're not buying British tea anymore. Just like kind of like here in the United States with the American Revolution, we started boycotting and stuff like that. Gandhi was definitely influenced by the American Revolution. Okay, came up with a lot of his own stuff, but definitely influenced by it. And then, of course, we know that Gandhi was influenced originally by the United States, and then eventually Gandhi influenced the Civil Rights Movement. He's going to influence Martin Luther King Jr. in his movement here in the United States. All right, here we go. So, Gandhi is doing his thing, and then we have the Government of India Act of 1937. Okay, so what we're going to see is that the British are starting to give in to to Indian independence. The British are starting to give in. Why do you think they're starting to give in? Why do you think they do? Because it has a negative impact on their bottom line as well as public opinion. When you're seeing photos of Indians getting murdered by British troops and they're not fighting back, it's really haunting. Have you seen like civil rights photos here in the United States when you see people getting pelted with fire hoses or police officers beating the crap out of people who are just sitting on a white service counter, right? That immediately you're just like, oh my God, you're just horrified by these images. That's the same thing that's happening here, and it's going to cause a worldwide reaction. Okay? So, the Indians are going to start getting some independence, and that creates more tension between the Muslims and the Hindus over who will have more power and authority. Okay? And then a new guy arises, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, which you absolutely need to know because he's a huge player in India. Okay? So, 1937, the British start giving India a little bit of autonomy or a little bit of independence. It creates massive tension between the Muslims and the Hindus. Okay? So then a guy named Muhammad Ali Jinnah comes around and he says we should create a partition. You need to use that language. He proposes a partition to create the state of Pakistan. Oh my God. Who wins? Gandhi or Muhammad Ali Jinnah? Jinnah does. Why? Why do we know Jinnah wins? Hi. What state exists in the world today? Pakistan. Pakistan exists. Okay? So, Muhammad Ali Jinnah is the guy behind Pakistan. Okay? So, eventually it will be created in 1947, which we aren't there yet, so don't worry about it. So, it's not going to happen until post-World War II, so we have to talk about World War II and then we'll come back to India. Everyone okay? So, right now, right before we start World War II, India is getting a little bit of independence, not a ton of independence, and they really want to be done with the British. Okay, skip a space, center it. China. Yes. Here we go. So, in 1911, the last emperor of China abdicates or gives up their throne. Okay? I don't care if you know his name. I don't. He was like 11 or 12 at the time. Not what you would call influential. Okay? So, anyway. So, Sun Yatsen. You do need to know his name. He's a big deal, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to put a nice star next to him. Sun Yat-sen takes power and proclaims China the Republic of China in 1912. So this is a big deal. I don't care if you know what the emperor's name is, because I don't care. I don't know it. However, you do need to know Sun Yat-sen. Okay, so Sun Yat-sen comes into power and he makes China the Republic of China in 1912. It is chaos. It is chaos. Okay? So, in order to gain power in the chaos, Sun Yat-sen creates the May 4th movement. So, in order to try to tame the chaos, you need to write that down. In order to try to tame the chaos, he implements the May 4th movement. Okay, so what it is that students and intellectuals are protesting foreign interference. Okay, protesting interference. So during this chaos, we have the May 4th movement come about, and they're protesting foreign interference, and Marxism comes to gain more popularity. Marxism is communism, ladies and gentlemen. So, does Sun Yat-sen start off as a communist leader? No, he is not a communist leader to start. He's not a communist leader to start. He's not a communist leader to start. He's not a communist leader to start. However, have things gone to his plan? No. So during the May 4th movement, communism becomes popular. So what does he embrace in order to stay in power? Marxism, communism. Okay? So, during the May 4th movement, communism becomes popular in China, and Sun Yat-sen embraces it to stay in power. You need to know that. Sun Yat-sen was not a communist to start. However, he was losing power and losing authority. So because of that, May 4th movement happens. May 4th movement is going to make popular the communism popular. He's going to embrace it then. Okay? Now, communism is going to be championed by a guy named Mao Zedong. You hit me with that. I got it right on the cheek. Is that because I threatened to beat you? Is that why? Straight to the cheek, guy. His pencil broke and it hit my cheek. It's okay. I can handle it. Okay? So, the communism is going to rise. It is going to be championed by a guy named Mao Zedong. Now, anyone give us any spoilers here? Do we know who he is? He's one of the most powerful men in the history of the world. Andrew?
The chairman of the Communist Party of China.
Yeah. Mao Zedong is the guy, you've seen his face on, like, walls in China. You've seen his face. He also writes the Little Red Book. Most popular book, second most popular book in the history of the world. First one's the Bible. No? Okay. Okay. So, May 4th, Sun Yat-sen comes into power in 1912. I'm just helping because it's a little chaotic. Then the May 4th movement happens and communism starts rising. Sun Yat-sen is not a communist. Okay? This whole communist movement is really led by a guy named Mao Zedong. So, Mao Zedong and Sun Yat-sen, you think they're friends or not friends? Not friends. So what is going to happen is Sun Yat-sen, okay, actually I'm getting a little ahead of myself, okay, so Mao Zedong comes into power. So Sun Yat-sen is going to realize that communism is the future, and he creates the Nationalist People's Party. Okay, as I told you, communism gets popular after the May 4th movement. He starts getting worried that, oh God, if I don't adopt communism, I'm going to lose power. So he creates the Nationalist People's Party. This asks for help from the Soviet Union. So China and the Soviet Union are now working together. Okay? So, he's going to die unexpectedly. Sun Yat-sen. He dies unexpectedly. So does this seem like his plan has finished? No. So Sun Yat-sen dies unexpectedly. Then we have a guy named Jiang Jieshi. Jiang Jieshi rises into power. Okay. So let's stop for a second because we have a lot of moving parts here. Sun Yat-sen rises into power. He is not a communist. During the May 4th movement, all of China is like, yay, communism. So he's like, well, shit. If I don't become a communist, people aren't going to like me. So he's like, shit, I'm going to become a communist. So he adopts communism. Is he a true believer? No, he's not a true believer. He's doing it to stay in power. With that being said, he does create a communist party, which is supported by the Russians. Why would the Russians want communism in China? To spread communism. Because right now, where is the only communism happening? In Russia. Now it's in China, so now it's starting to spread, and that's a good thing for communism. With that being said, Sun Yat-sen dies unexpectedly. Then we have Jiang Jieshi. Well, Jiang Jieshi has been Sun Yat-sen's number 2 for his whole life. Okay? So Jiang Jieshi is now in charge, and he's like, you know what? Communism sucks. I don't like it. Because was Sun Yat-sen a communist? No. Did he just become it at the very end of his life in order to stay in power? Yes. So Jiang Jieshi is like, you know what? Communism sucks. So he says communism sucks, and then what he does is he forces all communists in China out. So Jiang Jieshi comes into power, and he's like, communism sucks, and forces all communists to flee China on what we call the Long March. So, Sun Yat-sen, not a communist. Towards the end of his life, he's like, well, shit, if I'm going to stay in power, I'm going to be a communist. Well, Jiang Jieshi comes into power, who's his number 2, and he's like, you know what? Communism sucks, and I hate communists, so let's get them the hell out of our country. So he kicks all of them out in what we call the Long March. Well, Mao Zedong is in that Long March, and you need to know that. Mao Zedong gets kicked out of China via the Long March. And while he's walking, he writes a book called the Red Book, the Little Red Book. And it is like a little red book. It's really cute. I mean, kind of dark, but it's cute. Okay, so Mao Zedong gets kicked out of China because he's a communist, and Jiang Jieshi hates communists, so he kicks him out in what we call the Long March. While he's walking, he's also preaching communism. You need to write this down. It becomes incredibly popular. So, Jiang Jieshi comes into power, and he's like, you know what? Communists sucks. So, kick out all the communists. So, all the communists leave. They go on this long march. And while he's marching, Mao Zedong is writing a book, and he's preaching out all these things, and becomes incredibly popular. Okay? And eventually, guess who will rise into power, ladies and gentlemen? Who's going to overthrow Jiang Jieshi? Mao Zedong will eventually overthrow Jiang Jieshi. And that's where we'll leave China. Yes?
So was he, was he previously, like, had he previously rise in power and fall?
No, he was just a communist. I mean, he was important, but the Long March is what makes him famous. The Long March makes him a hero in this grandeur. Eventually, in AP Art History, you're going to study a bunch of Mao Zedong propaganda pieces, which is about him walking on his Long March through like super dangerous territory where he's preaching the word of communism and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. What?
I heard that he like swam in a river to like get popularity.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's how you have to struggle. So he's like the modern day influencers. You know what I mean? He would put himself in somewhat danger so he could get more likes on social media. You know what I mean? He's like those people.
They still do the swim to this day.
Yes, they do. Well, yeah, everyone was forced to cross a river. So was Mao. They do all that stuff. All right, Imperialist Japan. Here we go. So we'll pick up with Mao after World War II. Now we're in Japan. All right, so Japan is invited to the Treaty of Versailles. You need to know that. And they agreed to the Treaty of Versailles, which means no more conquering territory. Okay, so they invited to the Treaty of Versailles. They go, they sign it, and they say they will no longer take over any more territory in Asia. So guess what they obviously void immediately? Taking over territory in Asia. Okay, you do need to know that they're going to continue to imperialize China. Why are they imperializing China? What's happening in China? Are they unified or is it a hot mess over there? It's a hot mess. So they're like, oh, hell yeah, China's got tons of resources. We're just going to take over parts of China. And that's what they do. Okay, so the Mukden Incident in 1931. You need to know that. Mukden Incident. Okay, Japanese blow up a small Japanese building, owned business in China. Japanese blow up a Japanese business in China and use it to invade China. Perfect. Just like the USS Maine outside of Cuba. You remember that one? How we blew up our own ship and said, "Oh my God, Spain, you blew us up," and then we invaded, and then we won the Spanish-American War. No, we don't remember that. Yeah, that happened. Same type of thing. So, what they're going to do is that they use this as justification. So, what they do is that Japan invades and takes Manchuria. Okay, so the Mukden Incident is used as justification to invade Manchuria. FYI, you're going to put a big star. This is the first void of the Treaty of Versailles. First major voiding of the Treaty of Versailles. So the Japanese are the first ones to do a major void. Now, guess who's watching in Germany saying like, well shit, Germany, they got away with it. Who's sitting there watching? In Germany. Hitler. Hitler's in power now in Germany. And he's like, wait, Japan just broke the Treaty of Versailles. No one seems to give a shit. Well, if Japan can do it, I can do it. So what does Hitler start doing? Breaking the Treaty of Versailles. So he starts increasing the military, and does anyone say anything? No. Then he invades the Rhineland, and everyone's like, oh, Hitler, you can have it. It's fine. Okay, so Japan is going to continue taking over territory in Asia, building an empire. You need to know that. Okay. All right. As soon as you have that down, skip a space, center it, Africa. Okay. African colonists were forced to fight in World War I. And were given authority to kill white people. Okay, so all of these Africans were forced to go to the European continent and kill white people on the continent. So when they got back, they were like, wait, why can I kill them then but not now? So when they get back to Africa, they're like, screw this, let's kill white people. Okay, so once the war is over, the Africans begin fighting actively against European superiority and rebellions. Okay. We're also going to have, this is going to cause African unification. So post-World War I, they're like, wait, we're allowed to kill white people during the war. We all hate white people. Let's unify. So African unification is going to be led by Jomo Kenyatta. Okay, and he's from Kenya. And he wanted to make Africa a federation, like the United States. Like each country is independent, but yet they all work together. And then we have Marcus Garvey, who's all about Pan-Africanism, or the unification of Africa. And he came up with the idea of back to Africa, which is all Africans living everywhere else need to go back to the motherland and help the motherland rebuild, which was actually a very popular idea. And still to this day, you still have ramifications of it. Have you ever seen people wearing, like, the continent of Africa? Yeah? Have you ever seen people wear, like, medallion of Africa? It's usually, like, black beads, black and yellow and orange and red beads, and then they have, like, the whole continent. That is, that's part of Pan-Africanism and the unification and the going back to Africa, which is a pretty big movement, especially here in the 60s. There you go. I have a little bit more, but we'll get there. All right, see ya. Have a good day.